Good afternoon and welcome to Uni4Me Live. I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon by Bradley from the University of Southampton, Andrew from Liverpool John Moores University, and Debbie from Reading University. And this afternoon we're looking at HE myth busting. I'm going to hand over to Debbie, who's going to give us a little presentation, and then all of us will come back and have a conversation after the presentation and maybe answer some of your questions. So Debbie, I shall hand over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Today I'm going to talk about some of the big, most common myths we hear about higher education. I'll go through a few. I've actually picked 9, and we'll go through and I'll talk about, why they're myths, what the real situation is. Any questions you get throughout, we'll answer them all at the end. So let's go. So I picked 9 really common myths that I hear a lot about higher education and about university, and I'll go through them all. So they are: university is really expensive. I can't go to university if I can't afford it. This idea that if you go to university, you'll just be watching lectures and that's really boring all the time. I hear a lot of people saying that people like me aren't welcome at university, that university is just for like rich white people, middle class, and it's not really for me. So we'll talk about that a bit. University is really good, is only for people who are really, really good at very specific academic subjects, only for the so-called smart people. The idea that you can't go if you're autistic, if you're dyslexic, or if you're disabled, that you might have to move away from home to go to university. That you have to know what you want to do as a career before you choose a subject, before you go to university, that you have to take A-levels, and that, I have to be independent and there's no support when I get to university. So we'll go through all of those. Okay, so our first one, university is really expensive. Okay, so there is a cost to university, but you should realize that there's support available for it all the time. So if you're from the UK, the government provide a loan for UK students to cover your cost of tuition, regardless of your household income. And this is paid directly to the university. Student loans do depend on which country in the UK you're in, so check your local situation. But all eligible students are entitled to receive a maintenance loan. And this amount that you receive for that usually depends on where you live and where you study and your assessed household income. So everyone, regardless of household income, can claim the first £4,422. This is if you're studying outside of London and if you're living away from home. And the maximum available obviously gets up a lot, nearly to like £9,500. And your maintenance loan is paid directly to your bank account each term. The loan is repayable, but only when you're earning over £27,295 a year. So you only have to pay back after you're earning a certain threshold, which is actually more than the average household income, more than the average income. And there is extra support available all the time for people with child or adult dependents. If you have a disability, you can get some money to support that. And for those of you who are leaving local authority care. And there's also lots of scholarships available, lots of bursaries available, depending on the university. So there's lots of support available. It's not something that you could only do if you can afford to pay for it up front. Okay, university, just watching lectures. It's just really boring sitting in lectures. And there are some lectures involved in sitting in university. You do have to do some sort of listening. A lot of subjects will involve listening to lectures all the way through. But it's unlike in school where you've got 9 or more subjects at GCSE and then maybe 3 at A-level. At university, you'll pick one subject that you're really interested in. And there'll be subjects that you're really interested in, you're motivated to study. So you go to these lectures, but they're actually really interesting because they're a subject you've picked to study. So lectures can be up to 200 people, all listening to one person talk and all taking notes. Or you could have smaller discussion groups like seminars or tutorials. And you'll be able to interact with these. These are ones where you'll be encouraged to form your own opinion and develop your own learning through debate, through conversation and reflection. You may also have practical sessions in labs, depending on your subject, or with objects in museums or reading archives. And that gives you the opportunity to observe firsthand what you're learning about and investigate things for yourself, as well as conducting research. And this is because a degree places emphasis on independent study. So the important part of a degree is the learning that you do by yourself. You'll spend a lot of time in the library or in your own laptop writing essays and doing research of your own. And sometimes this is research that no one has investigated before. So a lot of people, as part of their degree, will study something new and cover a new area just in order to further the knowledge of that subject. There's also the opportunity to broaden your horizons and experience through travel. So the study abroad program at a lot of universities gives you the opportunity to spend some time at a university in a different culture. So you'll learn about your subject and you'll experience a different country and a different culture. If you study a language, for example, you nearly always will spend time in a country totally immersed in that language, which we know is the best way to learn a language. This could be a whole year, but it could also be a semester, or it could be during the holidays. And it depends on the course, it depends on the availability. And you can also travel for fieldwork within the course. And a lot of degrees also give you the opportunity to learn on the job with work placement or with experience. So this is really important in degrees that are linked to vocation, such as teaching or nursing. But most courses will have the opportunity for anything from a week or so during the holidays to an entire placement year. And employers really, really love this because they know you'll have real world experience and you'll have a little bit of an edge over someone who hasn't taken a placement year while studying, and you'll be more employable. So it's also really, really great fun. You get to meet new people, you live like a professional for a year, and you learn all about what the world might look like for you when you graduate. So you've got these different ways of learning, and university is all about finding new ways of learning, about developing your own experience. And it's not just sitting and passively listening to somebody else telling you information. So the idea that people like you, people like me, aren't welcome at university. Universities are huge melting pots of different people. There's no specific type of person who will fit in at a university. At the University of Reading, we've got about 80 different countries represented in our international students. We've got people of different backgrounds, people of different religions, people of different identities, and universities all support and they celebrate this diversity. And their students' unions will have societies of people from different religions, or they might have a background. So there's a huge opportunity to meet lots of different people. There's no typical university student. We've got loads and loads of people. So if you're ever worried about fitting at a university, come along to a campus, come along to an open day at some point, and find out what it's like. We've got loads of different people here. So the idea that education is only for people who are really, really smart, really, really good at academic subjects. Again, the most important thing is not necessarily how good you are at A-level. We do look at grades, but the most important thing about coming to university is being passionate about your subject, being motivated to study, really caring about what you're learning about. Universities offer a wide range of subjects, and some of these may be the ones you think of as academic, like maths, history, the ones that you study at school. And there's also subjects that you might think of as more vocational, that are linked to careers. We've got pictures here of our meteorology open day, so that's the study of weather. Our archaeology dig, we're talking about, we study film. You can learn hands-on how to use a camera, how to get into film. We also teach agriculture actually on our farms. And of course, we also teach construction and business and business management as well, and architecture and architectural engineering. So there's all these different hands-on subjects that aren't just about reading books and being able to recall facts and all the things that you might be worried about with with school learning. And based on that as well is this idea that you can't go to higher education because you've got a neurodiversity or you're disabled or any of these things. This isn't true whatsoever. We've got a massive range of disability support available. Universities are obligated to support disabled students and staff, but it should go deeper than that, and it usually does, because we all believe that everyone's got a right to higher education. Most universities will have a disability advisory service. And if you register your disability with them, they can then provide you with student support, and they'll give you other support such as a specialist mentor. Some aspects of this support are available to every student, regardless of disclosure of any disability. So this will be things like an academic tutor to support you, access to counselling and wellbeing services. And then if you register and disclose your disability with people, you can get this extra support as well that you're entitled to, such as support with exams, adjustments to your accommodation, and money towards any adjustments that need to be made as well. And if you're worried, if you think you might have a disability or neurodivergence, universities can also help you acquire a diagnosis if you need one in order to access any official support. I've got an example I like to give. I spoke to a student ambassador who goes to Reading, and she gave me some very specific support examples of support that she gets. So this is our student Lania, and I asked her what kind of support she was getting, and she just detailed them. So for example, would be exam support. She got extra time. She got rest breaks throughout her time, throughout her exams. A room on her own so she doesn't distract other students or be distracted by other students, and a really suitable chair to sit on. She has a dedicated disability officer who gives her personal support, checks in on her, helps her fill in extenuated circumstances forms and supports her in accessing the support she's entitled to. A good example, again, when she fell ill and she was on crutches, the disability officer sorted out all the taxis that she needed to get around campus, and helps with things like accommodation needs. Make sure that you're living somewhere that supports you. And then she's a specialist mentor as well that helps her organize her deadlines, reads through her works, make sure that she understands the exams and the assignments that she gets, and then keeps an eye on her mental health and will tell her department if she needs any support as well. So this is just a really specific personal information from a Reading student. And as you can see, the support you get is always specific, and it depends on you and your needs. Again, another question that we get is this idea that you have to move away from home. This is not true at all. You might want to. Lots of people go to university because they're looking forward to coming to moving away from home. You obviously can. And university accommodation is such a good way of getting used to living away from home. Your bills are sorted out for you. You usually just pay rent, and your utility bills, your internet bill, your heating and everything is included in that. You often get someone will sort out cleaning for you. And even if you go to what we call catered accommodation, you'll have someone cooking for you as well. So you just have to worry about being used to being away from home. So it's a really good way of supporting you as you get used to moving into adulthood. But if you still don't want to move away from home, you don't have to. You can go to a local university, and you can commute in. We have quite a few people who come into campus regularly. So there's no requirement to stay away from home. And you might well live somewhere where you've got a very good university really, really close. You can live at home and you can come to university and still take part in as much of university life as you want. So that really depends. And even if you go to a local university, if you happen to go to a university that's a mile away from your parents' house, there's usually no obligation. People will still give you accommodation. You can still move away from home and be as close or as far away from your parents as you feel comfortable with. So it's not compulsory to live at university. You can find a balance that suits you well. Next one, the idea that you have to take A-levels to go to university. This is such a common misconception I hear people say. And while it's true that some courses and some universities do prefer you to have the A-level qualification, universities are always looking at a range of qualifications onto entry. What I've got here is just a selection of the entry requirements, again, at Reading. And you can see here that the entry requirements for each qualification changes slightly. There's no universal equivalent. I can't say that, if a degree requires 3 Bs at A-level, it also always requires a DDM at the BTEC, because that's not true. But it does depend on each course. So check the university course. If you're year 11 now and you're going into further education or sixth form, when you start applying for university, start looking at the courses and making sure that you've got the entry requirements needed. But don't think that just because you're not taking A-levels, that doesn't mean that you can't apply to university. There's even foundation degrees available. So if you find out when you apply that you really have your heart set on a degree that you didn't take the correct A-levels or BTEC for, you can also do a foundation degree that will give you the knowledge and the specific subject requirements, so you can take up and you could have that knowledge and start again and start at university maybe a bit later. So just be aware that there's loads of options for you. And at this point, it's very unlikely that you'll have closed any doors. You can always take qualifications later as well. And talking about that, the idea that you have to have a specific career in mind before you apply to university, again, it's not really true. If you do know which job you want and which career you want to do, that's fantastic. But there's loads of support available for you when you're at university. In the same way, people that go to university who might have an idea about what they want to do can change their mind when they're here and they start to experience the full range of careers and opportunities available to you. So follow your passion, study a subject that you're really interested in and that you enjoy, and because it's going to take over your life for 3 years. And once you get to university, we can help you work out what the next step might be. We offer careers advice services that will help you practice interview skills, make sure your CV is looking really good. But it also can help you make your decisions and support you in making your ambitions a reality. And again, think about if you want to take, if you take a very specific vocational subject that you think only gives you one career option, that's not necessarily true. We have lots of people who take law, for example, at Reading, who go on to all sorts of careers. You don't have to be a solicitor or a barrister once you get a law degree, and you don't have to be you don't have to be a teacher if you take an academic degree, and you don't have to be an architect if you get an architecture degree. So there's plenty of opportunities for you, and it doesn't narrow things down to you. And if you end up taking a degree and you want to change your career later, again, there's always postgraduate options available to you. And finally, there's this idea that you have to be independent. There's no support for you if you find things difficult. University is a really, really good place to develop that independence. You'll find a huge difference between school and college and higher education is the level of independence you get. There's not someone checking up on you. There's not someone reminding you to do your study. You don't have like specific homework deadlines all the time. But it doesn't mean that you're alone. And there's help for you. You just have to ask for help. You have to know where to find it. You have to be able to find your student support. You have to be able to approach your academic tutor. And there's lots of support available for you, whether it's financial, whether it's needed study advice, whether you need support with your home situation. There's loads of support available throughout university. So to recap our examples, so there is financial support for the cost of university. Lectures are just one of the many, many ways we have of learning. Everyone is welcome at university. There's a wide range of subjects available for you. If you have a disability, there's support for you if you need it. You can choose to study close to home or you can study further away. There's lots of help to think about your career once you get to university. We accept a wide range of qualifications. It's not just about your A-levels. And any support you need when you get to university, we're here for you. And you just need to ask. Okay, fantastic. So I'm just going to stop sharing and hopefully we can get back to the panel part of our presentation.
Thank you,
Stop
Debbie.
sharing.
That was great. So I think we're all back online now. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I think I always get concerned when we talk about student finance and we use the term loan. I always think it's not very
really
accurate description, because what some people may not be aware is obviously you only start paying back your loan once you meet that threshold that Debbie mentioned of 27,000. But actually, if your income drops below that threshold again, you stop repayments until your income rises over that threshold again. And I don't know of any loan you can get in the world where that happens. I wish that was the case with my mortgage. So I think that's just an important thing to raise maybe for people. I suppose one of the things you talked about lectures, you talked about seminars, and you talked about tutorials. And maybe Andrew or Bradley could answer this, but does anyone want to talk about what actually is the difference? Particularly, I was thinking, I think Debbie described a lecture quite well, but what's the difference between a tutorial and a seminar?
I'm happy to take that one if you want. I mean, I think, you know, I always kind of like literally doing a talk before and was saying, if you don't know the lecture, think of a cinema, and it's almost kind of like that kind of same style, those big rooms, that. Whereas realistically, a seminar is more likely to be in a classroom environment, similar to what you will probably be in now in school, in sixth form colleges. And again, different universities will be different. Some universities, loads of their classes will take place in those lecture theatres and they won't have as many seminar tutorials. Most tend to break it down now. So typically you might have a couple of hundred maybe in those lectures, but that's only a short period of time. Those seminars will be more like those class discussions you will be having now with your teachers. And the tutorials will be then broken down into even smaller groups. So depending on the university, but maybe say a seminar could be 20 to 40 people, depending on the institution. A tutorial maybe is about 8 to 12. And I don't know, I'm guessing everybody else same. I remember being in lectures where I'm like, I have no idea what the tutor's going on about. I'm not going to be the thick person to put my hand up and say, I don't know what you're going on about. But in front of 10 other people, I didn't mind it as much. And generally then speaking, everybody else can, thank God you asked that, because we had no idea what he was going on about neither. So it's a nice, easier way to get different styles of learning, and it suits different people, because we know not everybody will suit those large lecture theatres, and it's great to be able to get some engagement and activity. Plus, equally, there might be obviously as well lab work, or depending on like drama studio, dance studio kind of work as well. So there'll be some more practical elements in those smaller classes.
Yeah. Anything to add, Bradley?
Yeah, I was just going to add on to that I think one thing that surprises students is the amount of group work that they might undertake. I think a lot of students come to university thinking, well, this is my degree, so everything that I'm going to do is be very dependent on my exam results and my assignments. But actually, depending on your course, you know, perhaps up to a third of your degree could be based on group work projects. And that's perhaps something that if you're prepared for that, you know how to approach that. And I suppose the reason that universities do that is that ultimately when we go into the workplace, a lot of our work is going to be collaborative. So I think the explanation between lectures and seminars was a good one, and how you can make the most of those, but also be prepared to work with your peers as well.
Yeah, definitely. I know that came as a bit of a shock to me as a mature student, that I suddenly found out how to work in a group and I would share their grade, which I was like, what? Yeah, so I think it does take a little bit of getting used to. So,
well, equally, that sometimes as well as an example of the art of negotiation. It's like I remember in one of my assessments not feeling like I should have deserved the same grade as everybody else. So having that confidence to be able to actually say to a tutor, actually, I can prove that I've done far more work. Again, the same way of there's times when you need to show in work that you are a team player, but equally times that you would need to say to your manager, actually, I've done most of this. I've not been let down. So again, like Bradley said, it is getting you ready for that real world experiences.
Yeah, and I think I often worry about the concept of people saying, well, you should go to university because you'll get a salary or you'll get a job that will pay you more money. And I don't think it's all about that. But I think without a shadow of a doubt, you do gain skills that will help you in a future career. And things like teamwork, probably the majority of jobs involve you working with other people, negotiating, and working as a team. And I think that's one of the valuable things that you learn through university, is kind of to start learning how to do that. I think you're always learning. Anything to add, Debbie?
Yes, I think it's think about what you said about skills. I think it's really easy to think about skills, and I know that when you're young, you have a lot of adults saying you've got to get these skills because they'll look really, really good on your application or your CV. And I think we forget, and we need to emphasize that they are actually things that we use day to day, and they are really useful. And the stuff that you learning how to do it at university, and it's not just in your university course, it's also university life, like clubs and societies and just getting involved. All those skills just stay with you. And it really does improve, your career, but also your life, your hobbies, being able to work with people, for example, as we're talking about teamwork. But everything else, just it really does support you further on after you've left university.
I think that's a really interesting point you raised there about clubs and societies and kind of activities outside your course, and being able to think, well, how do those things, I mean, one of the things I did when I went was I worked for the student newspaper and wrote lots of articles and had a great time going to free concerts and getting free CDs to review because I was the music editor. But it also teaches you, again, those ideas of teamwork and pulling together, hitting deadlines, which you do through your coursework. And I often think when you do come to apply for a job later on, it's important to remember those things that you've done. Just like when you're applying for university through your personal statement, thinking, well, what have I done outside maybe my academic study, which would make me a good student? Again, academic ability, you were talking about, I was relieved to hear that. I did get very good A-levels, so, and I didn't go until I was 30. But I was kind of interested in knowing, and I'm not sure whether any of your universities offer these, but some people might have heard about apprenticeships, and particularly degree apprenticeships now. And I just wondered if anyone could tell me something about those.
We offer a small number of them, and there's some great, certainly I know some great universities not too far from Liverpool, like Manchester Met and that as well, that offered them a wide variety of the growing. The whole idea of them is effectively you study on day release. That makes it sound far worse than it does, but you apply for these high level apprenticeships. There's certain criteria you have to meet, so like earning a certain salary. You still need to meet the academic grades as well, but you've got a full-time job. Every university pays into the university apprentice same levy, same with all large companies. So effectively that pays the tuition fee. So there's no tuition fee there. And you don't get the maintenance loan because that is your living cost, is your salary. So you're effectively getting paid to learn and earn, obviously, at the same time. You're gaining those job skills. I think it's something like 92% of employers keep their apprentices on as well because they put a lot of time and investment in. So it does take a longer time period, because maybe 5 years, because you're on that day release, but you're gaining skills. You're still mixing with the traditional undergraduate students. The only thing to always bear in mind in that is because effectively people go, I don't have to go in to get the university loans. They're super competitive. And some of those ones, you're looking at a good couple of 100 people applying for one place. So if that is something you're considering, the area that you can put your application in, and the same way with your UCAS personal statement, you need to stand out, but even more so, make sure that you put all those fantastic skills on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, for people who don't know, there is information about degree apprenticeships on the UCAS site, but you tend to apply direct to the employer. It's like applying for a job to get those, and they are competitive, but the numbers of degree apprenticeships are expanding all the time as well. So I think if you know exactly what you want to do, because they tend to be a little bit more focused, you're more choosing a job than choosing a degree course. But if that's what you're interested in, I think it's a really good route.
And the good thing about applying for apprenticeships, of course, is that you don't have to limit yourself. So when you're applying to university, you have to pick 5, and you can apply to as many degree apprenticeships as you like.
And you could apply to your 5 or 5 higher education.
Yes, absolutely.
And apply for a couple of degree apprenticeships as well. So, yeah, great. Just about the course variety, I don't know what we all did at university. Should we tell everyone? Debbie, what was your course?
My degree is in paleobiology.
I beg your pardon?
Paleobiology, which
Paleobiology.
it's the study of fossils and extinct life. And I don't know whether you've seen the movie Jurassic Park, but it's a bit like that. But they're not alive, so
That's a relief.
I know.
Andrew, what did you do?
My undergrad was drama and English literature, purely because they were my best 2 A levels, and my careers tutor went, maybe that's what you could do. So I just picked them because I did well at them, and then managed to sidestep into careers thanks to that.
Cool. Bradley, what's yours?
So mine was in events management and not at Southampton, as well, as a disclaimer. So yeah, a subject that you wouldn't have been able to have studied 30 years ago. I think when we talked about subjects that are more traditional versus vocational and linked to certain careers, that's probably one of the choices that you needed to make. So for me, as a 17, 18-year-old, I was quite focused kind of on what I wanted to do. But even down the line, flexibility kind of came in, and I found my way into higher education. So yeah, probably a slightly different one to the norm.
Cool. And if we could all have our time over again, would we keep the same degree subject, or is there something else we've found out we could do now?
I've had this conversation with a few people recently. I think ultimately, no, I wouldn't have changed what I would have done if I look back, because I think it was right for me at the time. But if you were going to ask me to choose an undergraduate degree now at my age, perhaps I would choose something different. But I think I stayed true to myself and the person that I was at the time. So no, I had a really good experience.
Okay. Andrew, would you change, or you're quite happy with what you did?
It is really hard, because you think it's thanks to the degree that I did that I ended up getting the career that I've got, the family that I've got. But at the same time, I mean, I went down more the performing arts route, but if I'd been more informed of the options pre-picking my GCSEs and done more of the sciences, stuff like wildlife conservation, going off work in biodiversity or stuff like that, I'd have loved to have done something like that, and do that as my hobbies now. So maybe it's so hard. Yes and no. Sorry, being on the fence there.
Right.
I feel that as well. It's very I talk about actually A-level choices was the one that I was talking about, is like, if I had my time again doing A-level choices, I would do at least one more humanity. But it would still have let me, I'd still have had the A-levels in order to get into the degree I did, which I think the only thing that I can say is I took a very specific degree, and it felt like I was taking a degree that would limit my options, which isn't the case at all, because I did so many, and I got to pick lots of modules from all over the university. I did some modules on archaeology, I did some on biology and genetics, and I did a lot on rocks and geology and geography. And I think, again, I was thinking a bit more, maybe wildlife conservation and maybe environmental sciences in general would have been something that I'd be interested in. But when you get to university, and you can pick and you can specialize your degree, and you can take all sorts of changes, all sorts of options.
I think it's quite interesting that the four of us, I did psychology and sociology, so the four of us have ended up in a very similar career sector, if you like, but we've all come at it through various different degrees. And I think it's important for people to realise that, the majority of jobs you apply for don't actually require you to have a degree in a specific subject. Obviously, if you want to be a doctor, you've got to do medicine, but there's plenty of careers out there that are open to, they're more interested employers in the skills you have than actually what subject you did at university. I often look at surfing studies, which I think sounds like quite a good one to have done. And the other one, I think Liverpool University did a degree in popular music in the study from a sociology angle. And I wish I'd known about that when I'd applied, because I would have loved to.
I used to work at Liverpool Hope University, and they ran the MA Beatles and popular music. And again, it was mainly that popular music degree, but by sticking the Beatles in front of it, you got a great American audience coming over things. But there's so many random options. You can do brewing and distilling at Heriot-Watt University. There's a module in the education degree of, at the University of Durham, just on Harry Potter in education and how that's used. So there's so many really great random degrees out there, never mind just then the module breakdowns?
I always wanted to do a degree in Disney studies, which I found out you could do in the States, just so I could say I had a Mickey Mouse degree, because a lot of politicians used to criticize certain degree courses. But as I say, I think it's more about the skills you get. And I suppose just one of my last questions, and then maybe we'll come to each of you after this, just to get your top tips. What did you find when you went to university, what was the biggest adjustment that you had when you went to university? Who wants to start us off on that?
Trying to think back, I think.
You're not that old, Bradley, come on.
No, I was going to say, I think, the memory's getting worse. I think you kind of go perhaps with like a set mindset of how your university experience is going to be, and you can't fully prepare yourself for it, which is kind of the beauty in itself. So, some of those decisions that you make about whether you move away from home or stay closer, that will make a difference to your overall experience. But when you are moving away from home, and it's just those little things about how you manage your time, and certainly how I manage my time now is completely different to what it was like when I was 18, 19 years old. Mm-hmm. Because no longer are you just kind of going perhaps to sixth form or college during the day, and then you're going home and food's on the table and all your washing's done for you. You are wholly responsible for yourself. And then you're also putting your study on top of that, and perhaps also part-time work. So, there's so many cliches, aren't there, about going to university, but I think that's probably one that really rings true is around managing your time.
I think just on that subject, one of the things that a lot of students find not necessarily difficult, but quite often you're given the topics for your essays or your group works right at the beginning of term and told where the deadline is, which could be 2 months down the line. And no one really chases you. No one kind of turns around to you and says, don't forget your essay is due in on here. It's all put down to you to remember that, which is quite different, I think, from when you're at school. So that can be an adjustment.
Yeah, I think the biggest adjustment for me was this kind of work-life balance. So depending on what life is like for you when you're doing A-levels or college, you might go from being I've at school all day, and then I've got to do homework, and then I've got to revise, and I've got and it's very intense, and you get told by everyone how important it is to suddenly go into university, suddenly feeling independent, and you have to motivate yourself, but you no longer have these deadlines, as you said. And I think it was realizing that you could just study for the sake of studying, and you're learning what you found enjoyable, and making sure, the hardest adjustment for me was just making sure that I knew that I couldn't stay out all night, every night, like the university cliche. I did quite a lot because I was at university in London. But just being able to, just working that out and spending a few months figuring out what I could do and still get my university study done, and finding that motivation for yourself.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Andrew?
I'd say actually probably was the social side of things. Ironically, you'd think that somebody going off and getting up on a stage would be quite confident, but quite often performing arts students are quite scared and timid people. And even though I was still in my same city, I went to the sixth form at my high school, so still knew everybody. So then you suddenly go to an environment where you don't know anybody, and a lot of other people are better at portraying that they're coping fine and stuff like that. So you think, oh, I'm the only one who I've not made as many mates as everybody else. And should I go out with that group of people tonight, or should I go off and do the studying? And it takes a little bit of time, but generally when you get to speak to people, everybody's in that same boat. Those who've moved away from home because they're thinking, oh, I don't know anybody, even the ones that stay at home, because then you're thinking, oh, I'm not getting those same mates that I would have done in the accommodation. So having just that confidence to go up to people and be like, hi, who are you? How do we know each other? And trying to forge new networks of people.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So I guess just in finishing, what would your top tip be for someone who's thinking of applying to university or wondering if it's for them? Who wants to start?
Yeah, I'll start. I think the main thing for me, the thing that I've tackled a lot, has been the financial aspects of going to university. And I sort of hesitate to have that as my top tip because I feel like I need 45 minutes to explain it properly. So I won't go into kind of like the details of how the scheme works, but I suppose my tip is to really go away and spend some time learning about the loan system. It is peculiar. It is not like any other financial system. As you said, Martin, it's very different to any other loan system that we have in the UK. But it should not be a deterrent from you going or not going to university. We've done some work and kind of gone beyond the realms of just maintenance loans and tuition fees and paying back your repayments and whatnot, but also looking at how you can maximize your time at university, because don't forget, you can still work part-time. It's not just a case that you go to uni and you're just living off of your loans. You'll also have other areas of income. So it's not just the cost sometimes for students, but it's like, how am I going to be able to survive and live and have enough money to have to get me through? But there's lots of support there available for you. Universities have things like hardship funds as well to help students who are struggling. You are in the best possible environment to be able to then go on into your professional careers or whatever you go on to do next. So yeah, please just spend some time, go on to Money Saving Expert, put Student Finance UK into YouTube, and just spend an evening researching it.
Yeah, I think that's a good tip. But it is very much based on this concept of affordability, I think, and you only pay back when you're in a position to afford, and you only pay back a small fraction of your income. So the more you earn, the more it becomes affordable to pay more back. And I think that's important for people to realise. It's also a very hard one because we don't know how student finance will change in the future. There's lots of talk. For example, if there was a change of government, Labour have said at one stage they might abolish student fees. Whether they still hold that line at the moment, I don't know. At the moment, the Conservative governments are talking maybe reducing the amount that it costs to go to university. So therefore, any kind of support system would be changed accordingly. So I think it's something you have to look at when you're in that position where you're about to apply as well. Andrew, coming to you for a top tip.
I'd say is have the confidence to partly sell yourself confidently on those personal statements, but equally go for the course that you want to. So like you mentioned, Martin, about those Mickey Mouse courses that people tend to say. And, I've spoken to people who are careers advisors. You go, I don't want to encourage my own kids to go for those degrees. So have the confidence. If you think it's the right degree for you, like we've all said, transferable skills will take you everywhere, but equally have that confidence in your own skill set. The amount of students I'm speaking to at the moment that don't think they have resilience, adaptability, independent study skills, time management skills. I'm sat there going, we're living through a global pandemic when you've been sent home twice because of lockdowns, at least. God knows how many times your bubbles have burst. So you are showing all of those skill sets that a university, like we've all kind of said, we probably only learned those skills whilst we started at university. So you're already ahead of the crowd in that sense. So have that confidence to be able to say, I have this skill and I can use it properly.
I think Debbie said something earlier on. She said, follow your passion. And I would never say any degree subject is not worth studying. I think it's really important to pick something you like, because 3 years is a long time to study something you might not be that interested in. So I think it's really important to find out, and there are so many subjects out there. So I think follow your passion is a good one. I hope that wasn't your top tip, Debbie, because I've just robbed it.
It was going to be. I think Andrew took mine. I think mine is, when you're looking at universities, look at more than what you're going to study. It's your life for 3 years, 4 years. It's where you're going to live, where you're going to study. If you can, as soon as you're allowed to, go to as many university campuses as you can, visit them, have a look online, look at the social life, look at the clubs and societies. We haven't really talked a lot about that the kind of the clubs and societies that universities do, but you can play any sport you like. Reading's one of the best universities in the country for Quidditch. There's so many sports you can do, so many societies you do. So have a look at the university beyond what you'll be studying, beyond the degree as well, and go and have a look and see if you want to live there.
Yeah, and I think that's possibly, if there is an advantage from this global pandemic, it is that lots of universities now have online campus tours which are available. We've got quite a few up on the Uni4Me website, and that enables you to have a sit in your armchair one evening and have a look around different universities, and even some have got tours of the city, find out a little bit out of it. And no one's saying that can replace you actually going there. But sometimes it can be a bit costly to go and visit all these places, and maybe that's a way of you just doing that bit of research first and finding out where you think you'd like to be. So it just remains for me to thank Bradley, Andrew and Debbie this afternoon, particularly for Debbie's presentation as well, for the hard work put into that. And Uni4Me, this is the last one of this term. So we wish you a pleasant summer holiday if you haven't already finished school, and we shall return hopefully in September. So thank you very much.